Yo, Liverpool have just beaten Manchester United 3-0 in their third televised pre-season friendly, and in this video I'm going to discuss both this game and the Arsenal game, focusing on the influence of Arne Slot's preferred structure in each phase of play, his impressive tactical flexibility, and this new version we're seeing of Mohamed Salah. Before I get into this video, I wanted to ask very nicely for two things. The first is to overlook the below average audio quality and how polished this video is, and instead focus on the information presented. I think there are quite a few aspects of Arne Slot's philosophy covered in this video that I haven't seen on any Liverpool specific channels. Most of these channels are just lazily assigning arbitrary ratings to players after the game and calling it a day. The second is to please consider subscribing if you liked the video. Over 98% of people that watched my last video aren't subscribed, so I thought I'd mention this at the start of this video, and with that out of the way, let's get into it. Against both Arsenal and Manchester United, Liverpool built attacks in a 4-2 structure with neither fullback inverting in this phase. However, in both of these games, we did see Kostas Tsimikas invert a couple of times when Curtis Jones pushed forward in the next phase of play. Arne Slot always wants to make sure that his sides have a numerical advantage in central areas, and once you understand this, every tactical tweak in each phase of play begins to make sense. The only issue so far that I've noticed in this phase of play was that there were too many individual errors, with Caoimhín Kelleher and Curtis Jones especially guilty of giving the ball away cheaply against Arsenal, and Ibrahim Konate guilty of some really sloppy passing against United. Moving further forward, it seems as if there's a bit of an audition happening for the sitting midfield position in the double pivot, with Szoboszlai starting there against Arsenal and Ryan Gravenberch starting there against United. I did speculate that we could see Szoboszlai playing deeper under this manager in my video on Arne Slot's philosophy and tactical approach. Please check that out, by the way. And I do think that he's looked the most accomplished in this position from the small sample size of pre-season games that we've seen. Gravenberch did well against United. He did grow into the game, but him and Curtis Jones still want too many touches on the ball at times, which is why I think if we don't sign another midfielder, a double pivot of Szoboszlai and McAllister looks the most likely, especially considering how well Harvey Elliott has performed in the number 10 role. Jurgen Klopp's teams often bypass the midfield, relying on players like Virgil van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold to spray direct passes to the wide players. If these passes fell short, that wasn't an issue for Jurgen Klopp, as it presented a fantastic opportunity to counter-press the opposition deep in their half. Arne Slot, however, is much more control-orientated and prefers his sides to progress the ball using clever movement and short, sharp passes. He was inspired by total football principles after all. The issue with this is that the profile of midfielder moves away from water-carrying eights to tactically flexible, technically proficient footballers. I know Curtis Jones has recently gone on record for saying that Slot's football is more suited to how he likes to play, but in my opinion, he seems more suited to the high-energy, all-action eights in a Klopp system, more so than any of the midfield positions in a Slot side. Despite scoring against United, he is one of the only players who I really haven't been impressed with at all in pre-season. In the final third, Fabio Carvalho would position himself high and wide on the left-hand side, with Mohamed Salah doing the same thing on the opposite flank. Salah's positioning caused Arsenal in particular a whole host of problems because Gabriel was having to shuttle across to him when Zinchenko inverted into midfield. This helped stretch the Arsenal backline, creating more space for Diogo Jota and Harvey Elliott. Against United, however, we saw Carvalho and Salah often nip slightly more inside to provide passing options, with the width then coming from Liverpool's fullbacks. Carvalho did this against Arsenal on occasion as well, almost forming like a 4-3-3 at times. This is something else that I highlighted in my Arne Slot video. At Feyenoord, we often saw one wide player keep the width and one wide player drift inside as the fullback on that side got forward. Once again, the reason for this is to create overloads in central areas. And this is not strictly to improve our ability to attack centrally, but it helps create really good conditions for managing defensive transitions. Speaking of Slot's Liverpool without the ball, in these two games, Liverpool were quite flexible in their pressing, clearly adjusting their press to the structure that the opposition attempted to build up on. The go-to seems to be a 4-2-4 with the attacking midfielder joining the narrow line of front players. If the opposition do manage to bypass this initial press, Liverpool have the numbers to then suffocate the opposition in midfield with an aggressive press especially with all of the front four charging back into central positions as well. Sometimes they press in a 4-3-3 with Salah shifting slightly more inside and Carvalho dropping into midfield. Against United, we also saw Liverpool press in a 4-1-4-1 with Harvey Elliott responsible for making sure Casemiro didn't give Onana a passing option in midfield. That forced Casemiro to drop into his defensive line if he wanted to get involved in Manchester United's build-up. Speaking of flexibility, Arne Slot is not dogmatic in his desire for control. You can still play direct passes, especially when the opposition have applied an intense press. This has helped Liverpool maintain one of their greatest strengths that they had under Klopp, the counter-attack. Liverpool have looked so dangerous in attacking transition in pre-season, and that's without Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez and Cody Gakpo in forward areas, and without Trent Alexander-Arnold's laser-like passing from deep. The last thing that I wanted to highlight in this video is Mohamed Salah. He's looked so sharp in pre-season and he's still a killer in the final third. He's just a different kind of killer. We rarely see Salah selfishly ignore players in better positions anymore to pepper the opposition's goal with shot after shot. We're definitely witnessing a more mature, creative Salah that is still heavily involved in everything going forward. We saw glimpses of his more creative side last season, but I think we'll see a lot more of it this season. One of my most watched Liverpool related videos last season was titled "Stop Blaming Mohamed Salah," because he has so much more to offer this team, and I think he will be one of the main beneficiaries of Slot's system when the entire squad is available. That's all for me. There are so many talking points from these two games, but I wanted to limit it to what I found or thought were the most interesting. So please let me know your thoughts on Liverpool's pre-season so far. Are you enjoying Liverpool's new style of play, and which players have you been most impressed with? Get your comments in down below. Lastly, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more football related content, and thank you so much for watching.